Do you feel like you're stuck in your home because of property taxes? I've got news for you. You have options. Let's go ahead and take a look and see what you can do to get unstuck. So, why do so many seniors stay put? The reason that they stay put is because they're afraid of their property tax bill resetting. What does that really mean? Typically, when you purchase a home in Florida, if that home is your primary residence, you have the option to file for a homestead exemption on that property. That homestead exemption provides several benefits, but one of the key benefits is that it prevents your assessed value that's used to calculate your property taxes from going up by more than 3% in any given year. That means that if you bought a home for $100,000 in year one, it could go up by as much as 3%, but not more than that. Year two, the same thing. The new value can increase by 3%. And each year you have a cap where the assessed value on that property cannot be increased by your taxing authority by more than 3% a year. In the meantime, in the real market, in the open market, prices are increasing at 5-10% per year. And over time, that creates a real gap between what the market value is on the property and what the assessed value is for tax purposes. The difference between those numbers, say for example, your assessed value is $200,000 and the real market value is $300,000, you would have $100,000 of value of equity that is being sheltered from property taxes. And so a lot of times, homeowners don't want to sell their home because they're afraid that they're going to reset when they buy a new home. The new market value will become the basis for their purchase, so they're going to reset, and they don't want to get that tax spike. They don't want to have that big tax jump because sometimes, depending on how long you're at the property and what the gap, the sheltered amount is, downsizing to a smaller, less expensive property can still end up creating a much larger tax bill than you had at the previous residence. Because of that uncertainty, a lot of times seniors who maybe would be better served downsizing or even upsizing, depends on what your family needs are, they feel very much stuck, trapped in their home because they don't want to make a change that's going to trigger a property tax reset. But enter portability. Let's talk about what that is and how it helps you. So portability is a simple way to keep your tax savings. What it does is it protects your benefit, that sheltered income is protected, and depending upon the circumstances, you can transfer that sheltered value over to your new property and prevent or reduce. Sometimes the gap is such that it can't completely offset, but certainly can significantly reduce your tax bill in your new property, preventing a huge tax spike. So at the end of the day, you're not really starting over. You're not walking away from all of the benefits that came from owning that home and sheltering that amount of value. You can legally and reasonably take some or all of that with you to your new property. So let's talk about what that looks like. Let's put some numbers beside that, because I find when explaining concepts like this, it's always a little bit easier if we can explain the concept. So how does it work? Again, say we have a market value. We've been in a home, you've been in your home for a decade or more, and the home is now worth $400,000. But because of homestead and because of the shelter, you are only being taxed on $200,000 worth of value. In other words, there's $200,000 of value that you have in your property that is being sheltered, that is not being taxed at all, because based on the homestead exemption, it just doesn't factor it into the calculation. If you decide that you are going to move and you invoke portability, wherever you go, whatever the purchase price is of your new home, you are able to take some or all of that $200,000 of sheltered value and use that to reduce the value of your new property and therefore end up paying less taxes. So say in this scenario, you were buying, your home is $400 in value, you're going to sell, you have $200,000 that you're paying taxes on. In terms of property taxes, you have an extra $200,000 that is sheltered, and you're going to buy a home for $500,000. You can buy that home for $500,000, and what will happen is instead of the property tax appraisal office calculating your property taxes based on that new purchase price of $500,000, they will subtract that $200,000 of sheltered value that you had on the previous property and deduct it from the new property. So instead of paying on $500,000 worth of value, you can subtract that $200,000 shelter, and now your taxes will be calculated based on $300,000, which is the net number from the $500,000 after the $200,000 of sheltered savings is deducted. So you'd be paying taxes on $300,000. Now bear in mind that in your previous residence, you were only paying taxes on $200,000. So now in this new residence, you're going to be paying taxes on $300,000. But the good news is that you're not paying taxes on $500,000. So that tax savings, you are able to take that with you and therefore shelter some of your value on the new property. So what do you need to qualify? For you to be able to take advantage of portability, you have to be working with a homestead exemption. So it has to be a primary residence. So you have multiple properties, and these properties are investments. None of this holds true. You sell an investment property, you buy a new one, there's no transfer, none of this works. This only works for homesteaded properties. So you need to have a homestead exemption. The new home that you're buying has to be in Florida. It doesn't have to be in the same county, city, town where you lived previously, but you do have to be within the state. So your new home has to be in Florida. You have 2 years from the point of making the sale. So from the point that your home sold, you have 2 years within which to apply for portability. So if you don't apply after 2 years, the option expires and that protection is no longer available. And then last but not least, there's a maximum amount that can be transferred of up to $500,000. So that's the maximum amount that's being sheltered. If you're in the unique position of sheltering more than $500,000, your home is worth $1 million and you're only paying taxes on $400,000. Good for you. That's a $600,000 shelter or $600,000 difference between the assessed value and the market value. But were you to sell and try to trigger that portability benefit, you could only do so to the tune of $500,000 because that is the maximum that is allowed. Okay, so what happens if you're downsizing? And this works for downsizing as well as upsizing. So what happens if you're downsizing? Say you're moving to a less expensive house. It becomes a little bit of a calculation where you get to prorate a portion of the sheltered value to take with you. All right, so that's a calculation. You don't get to take the entire benefit, but you do get to prorate it so you can get a portion of that sheltered value to go with you if you are downsizing. So that means you're going to a less expensive property. What happens if you're moving up? You're going to a more expensive property. Then chances you do have the option, if the numbers work, to transfer up to $500,000. And that will be used to offset the higher market value. We went through the numbers a couple of slides ago, but you get to reduce your new market value by the sheltered amount to come up with what the net number that you're going to be using, or that the property appraiser is going to be using as a basis for calculating your property taxes. And so at the end of the day, you don't lose everything. You don't lose all of those tax savings. You are able to port them over to your new property and take advantage of that. The moral of the story is that you may have more flexibility than you think. Okay, you're not locked in, because there are ways that you can transfer some of that sheltered value to a new property. If you're looking to downsize and reduce maintenance or reduce living costs, this might be an ideal scenario for you, because not only will you be able to keep a portion of your tax savings, your property tax savings, but it could also translate into more disposable income, because it's going to cost you less to live, theoretically, if you're downsizing. If you want to move closer to family, you have family in a different part of Florida and you want to move, but you don't want to trigger a tax spike, then obviously this is an option. But overall, if downsizing or upsizing is something that would improve your overall lifestyle and quality of life, it would be unfortunate for you not to be able to do that and to enjoy the things that you're looking to do, because you feel like you're locked in and you're trying to manage what your property tax bill is going to be. It's never intended for the tax bill to be the determinant of what you do. It should be the other way around. If you're interested in talking about your specific numbers, I'm happy to sit with you and go through the numbers together. Schedule a consultation with me. You can visit my website, simplyaskSharon.com. There's a link there where you can book a time for a free 15-minute phone call to go over your specific numbers so we can talk them through. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please remember to like it. Also, please subscribe to our channel so that you can be notified when new videos are produced. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you the next time.